practicing anatomy, aka productive gooning. Cause tell me why you are looking at borderline naked people for hours. I know what kind of person you are. All jokes aside, I'm sure you came to this video to understand how to draw anatomy better, so I'll try to help you out. I'm gonna split this video into two parts. I'll briefly go over what parts of the human body I feel like are the most important for you to know, and then I'll give you tips that slowly become more unethical so that you can become an art god. So, when it comes to anatomy and my personal experience, I feel like the most important things you need to know are the skeleton and muscles. So why these? Do you know why the ASU frat leader Mog's clavicular? It's because of his frame. In other words, the frame of the human body will really affect how the body looks. Alright, that was such a terrible reference there, but anyway, what makes up the frame of a human body? It's clearly the skeleton. The skeleton is responsible for the body proportions. For example, how long the limbs and torso are, the size of the head. All of these things are based off of the skeleton. Now, you don't need to know every single bone in the human body. So artists tend to simplify it a lot. And that's why you've probably seen these kind of things before. This is how artists map out the frame of the human they're about to draw. You can see the ribcage can be in this weird spherical shape. Hips are the triangle, limbs are simplified in cylinder. A lot of these kind of things are for the proportions, the foundation, simplifying the skeleton. Because if you screw this part up, there's no way you're going to make your drawing good, I think. Alright, now let's move on to the muscles. Similar to the skeleton, you don't need to memorize all of the muscles, but just understand the prominent ones. From my experience, knowing the general shape of the chest, abs, back, lower and upper arms, and legs is good enough. But that sounds like a lot, right? It may be intimidating, but that's why we use references here. I'm saying we do. Please use them. Alright, so why do we need to know muscles? It's because they give off that subtle but impactful flow of the body. Now, that sounds like a whole lot of BS, but your body is probably not made of straight lines and stuff. Your arms aren't straight, right? They have subtle curvature to them. And that's what muscles do. They give off that round shape to it. Obviously other things like fat could be a factor, but fat makes things more complicated in this case, so let's just stick with muscle. Please don't cancel me. So to simplify everything I just said, just think of your skeleton as the overarching shape of your body, and the muscles more of the finer details, right? Because you're doing the shapes of each individual body part. You need both to draw good anatomy though. Alright, so remember that, kids, boys, girls. I don't know, you might be older than me. Alright, so let's talk about tips on how to improve your anatomy. Number 1, use references. This is pretty self-explanatory. A lot of artists say to do this because it's true. You gotta learn from the real life stuff. And in terms of references, you can use pictures of, people you find online or yourself. Because remember, you are human too. I think. You better not be like a dog watching this. That'd be crazy. I want to meet you. Alright, tip number 2. Analyze what you see. You got your reference now, so what do? Observe it. Basically, just identify the hips and shoulders, where they are, the arms, how they are bent, where they start and end, how big the head is. Identify important proportions so you have a general understanding of what a typical body looks like. Perhaps shoulder to waist ratio, how much of the body is made up of leg. This will help with understanding the frame of a person. When you draw something more original, remember that everyone is built different. So how one person is built isn't how everyone is. And some people may have bigger torsos, longer arms, shorter legs, bigger heads. But this is kind of a blessing because that means there's no perfect equation or formula or proportion you need to nail for things to look right. So yeah, also whenever you're studying anatomy and gesture or just using a reference of a person, you should take notes of these things, even if it's just mental. Alright, next tip is muscle studies. Again, muscles kind of determine how the body part is going to be shaped. So understanding how muscles look like, how they work, not really how they work, but just how they look like, will help a lot with drawing human body parts. So yeah, just find some muscular dude on Pinterest or whatever, or female, gotta practice both, and just try to see the shapes of the muscles, the specific groups, how they separate, sketch it out. And I kind of recommend this as well, but shading, and see how light interacts with the shapes of the muscles, because muscles aren't just flat, right? They got some volume to them. They're lumpy and stuff. So yeah, a quick tip for shapes of muscles, like don't use just the airbrush tool. A lot of muscles also have a sharp edge too, so keep that in mind. All right, now next tip is gesture drawings. So the tips I suggested earlier on practicing are skeleton specific or muscle specific, but to get a good combination of both, I do recommend gesture drawings, because a good artist can draw a body with flow to it, because like no one likes it stiff, huh? What you're trying to capture in a gesture drawing is like the body in motion, right? That flowy, natural pose, feel, vibe to it. And it really just combines your knowledge of muscles and skeletons, in that you need to have a good idea of proportions, but you also should understand the basic shapes of like limbs and stuff. And again, that's all because of like muscles and stuff. So it's a good practice that mixes in both. Obviously, these don't need to be too detailed. You're trying to go for more of the flowy vibe to it. But yeah, it's really good practice if you want to create more dynamic poses, because yeah, no one likes static poses all the time. It's boring. Now, next tip. This is where we start getting a little weird and unethical, but not necessarily unethical, but falling into the bodybuilding / weightlifting rabbit hole. I know, but hear me out. This is the path I chose, and I feel like it's the most ethical one I'm gonna mention from now on. Cause I can't lie, I'm obsessed with the gym now, and as a result, my For You page is filled with muscular men and women, but mostly men, shirtless and posing. Might sound crazy, but hear me out. Honestly, I feel like this kind of content improved my understanding of anatomy the most. Like, thanks to this, I can confidently say I can draw most of the muscles in the human body without a reference. Also, I think it's just good for my health. Like, other than the fact that I'm developing some body dysmorphia, I care too much about what I eat, and I've killed off a lot of chickens for a below average physique. I'm like doing some physical activity, because, you know, as a student and someone who draws, that's like a combination for just sitting on my ass all day, and that's not good for me. So, you know, a little movement here and there is great. So yeah, very nice. All right, as we tread deeper into this hole straight to hell, the next tip I got is doom scroll thirst traps. Now, maybe the gym isn't your type of thing, you know, the gym isn't for everyone, but that's where thirst traps may come in. You know, it's like the non-gym equivalent. Instead of doom scrolling and consuming content of muscular people posing, you see nearly naked women and men, maybe, dancing and like trying to seduce you with their bodies and their faces. This is a similar effect to the one I mentioned before, just a little more gooner core, because, you know, it's pretty clear. But yeah, this method was popularized by, I think, Colleen. I don't remember exactly what video, but she did mention using thirst traps as a way to draw. And honestly, if it works, it works. I mean, on paper, it sounds like it would. You're like, you know, you're looking at people and neurons are activating. So you probably develop some kind of like, I don't know, understanding of anatomy, right? This is getting crazy. This is not even the worst thing I'm about to say. Now, the most unethical tip that I'm gonna be giving y'all is, before I say it, is I just want to, you know, clarify, I do not recommend this one at all, because of the negative impact it can have on your mental health, your social life. You know, it can negatively impact a lot of things going on. But if you truly think that it must be done, then that's all you. But become an actual gooner. Now, this is like consuming thirst traps, but you're further from God. So think about what could be worse than thirst traps, if you know what I mean. So I'm talking like, I guess, funny videos, that kind of stuff. And I guess the pros are like, you'll develop a good understanding of anatomy, probably in areas that are more niche or perhaps unnecessary, or maybe it's necessary because there's a type of like art style that you want to pursue in. But if you don't, then it's not for you. These are for the niche artists, if you know what I mean, if you want to get good at that kind of stuff. But other than that, I don't really recommend this. I'm not being clear right now for obvious reasons. If you know, you know, but the drawbacks are just too much. You know, you're gonna have bad mental health. You're probably gonna crumble socially. Your parents might become disappointed in you. There's a lot of drawbacks, but at least you know your anatomy. So if that's worth it for you, go ahead, but not for me. This is like the equivalent of like taking steroids. Actually, I don't know about that, but yeah. Well, I hope this helped you out, and yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.